All right. Welcome to another episode of the Breadwinning Women podcast. I am so excited to have my friend Rose with us today. I'm just going to let her you're not ready. First of all, let me actually get you ready so that you can be ready. If you have little ones in the room and all of that, put your earbuds on. Okay. This is going to be a juicy adult conversation. Okay. So get ready we're going to talk about all the things with my friend Rose here. So Rose, welcome to the Breadwinning Women podcast.
Yay.
I'm so excited to have you. And I should say Dr. Rose, in fact, here, who you really go by sex therapist. That's correct, right?
So I am a sex and intimacy coach and pelvic floor physical therapist. So I am not a trained therapist.
Okay. So sex and intimacy coach. So today, Breadwinning Women, we're going to talk about your sex and your intimacy and how it relates to you being able to hit those big, bold breadwinning goals that you have. And Dr. Rose is going to help us to get there. So I want to just jump right into this conversation, Rose, and start off with talking about, what I noticed, right, is that a lot of us high achieving women have really been socialized to either delay or deny our desires. And so how can we get in touch, right, with what our desires are so that we can really, really, really start to ask for what we want?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it is so common for people who are socialized as women to really be very attuned to what other people are wanting, needing, feeling, thinking, right? We're taught to keep a pulse on most situations and really attuned to others' needs. And so it's a journey to turn inside and attune to our own needs and really ask ourselves, what do I want? A lot of the time when I start this work with my clients, it's kind of like a blank. I don't know. I know what I don't want. I know it's not working. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's many different ways that we can go about this path. One of my favorites is doing a vision meditation that basically allows you to embody that future self that already has the things that you want. I think a lot of the time it helps your brain get out of the way and stop kind of swirling about, oh, but I don't know how that would work with this person in my life, or I don't know if I could do that, right? It just kind of allows you to dream without any limitations. I think another piece that's really, really helpful is being around other people who are living into their desires and really just seeing what's possible. I mean, you and I are in an incredible community where we get to witness each other really living into our desires in different ways. And I think that each person that I come in contact with is an expander for me because I get to see wow, I didn't even know that was possible, right? Now I get to desire this because now I know it's possible, right? And so I think that it's easy to have these limitations if we're in a silo and we're just only talking to our own brain. And that's why I think it's so hard with sex and intimacy, because we don't talk about it. And so we just don't have that social interaction where we're able to look and say oh, that's what you desire. Maybe that's what I desire. Let me see if I can try that on and explore it. Right.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I do find that to be true, even in my own life, where sometimes we don't even know what's possible.
Yeah.
And you get around seeing other people doing things and making things happen, and you're like, oh, people do that? That happens? Right. And so then it's wait a minute, what have I been thinking? Right. I didn't even realize, right? Oh yes, I absolutely want this. I think it happens most commonly when we may see someone having something, whether it is a loving relationship or even when it comes to material things. Oh, I love that dress that she has on. Or I love we say oh, I want that too. Right.
Yeah.
like that's the small way that it happens every day, but we're not tapping into it necessarily for the bigger things. I
Right.
love that you mentioned this meditation, like so tell us more about that. How do we practice that? Is there an audio we need to grab on YouTube to do that? Like how what does that look like? Being able to do some
Yeah.
type of visualization that can help us to get clear on our desires.
Yeah. So this is like one of the first things I do with every single one of my clients. And I usually don't actually give this out, but I'm happy to give your audience a free copy of it because I think it is transformational. So you'll have exclusive access. I've never shared it.
Oh wow,
And as a
that's
freebie.
amazing.
So but you know, I think it is transformative. And basically the idea of it is, say you and I are going on a road trip, Jamila, and I'm like, okay, where do you want to go? And you're like, I just hate Arizona. Definitely not Arizona. Right. And it's like, okay, so what should I pack? Like, what should I get excited for? Are we going snow? Are we going mountains? Are we doing beach? Right. What direction are we driving in? And sometimes it's hard to tell. And so the visualization that I walk my clients through is basically interacting with your future self, your self 6 months in the future, and really just seeing it as it's already done, right? Not asking yourself, okay, come up with how will I feel? Come up with what am I going to do? Like actually meet her or them or whatever, you know, your pronouns are, but meet your future self and have a conversation. And you know, it's just so much easier to get those answers because you're seeing it. You're seeing it as a possibility already, and you kind of become a expander for yourself. I just did a second visualization with a client who we had been working together for 6 months, and she just started another package with me. And she's like, the first time I did this visualization, I didn't think any of those things were possible. And they've all come true. And now the second visualization, now I'm just excited to see how we do it. Right. And so you can act as an expander for yourself, even to say, all right, now I do believe this is possible. Now I can see that could happen because it already has.
Yeah, I love that. So once we get clear on, we use the visual, and thank you, Rose, for offering that. So that's amazing. So
Yeah.
once we do the visualization, we get clear on what it is that we desire. How do we start to ask for it?
Yeah. This is a big one. It is a big one. There are a lot of stories that we are fed, a lot of patriarchal bullshit about not being needy, right? Like not taking up too much space, not making anyone uncomfortable or stepping on any toes or, you know, putting anyone out or making anyone feel pressured, right? And so I think that it starts with the small things. And I think that we need to remember it's a practice. So first we identify, okay, what do I want? And then we say, what are the small ways? Like, what's the 5% version of this that I could start asking for? So say in your vision meditation, you saw you and your partner going dancing weekly, and you're like eating healthy food all the time. There's like a chef that's cooking organic meals for you, right? So you're like, okay, that's where I'm going. That's the big picture.
Yeah. You're all up in my vision board, girl.
And so we just have to say, okay, it's easy to get overwhelmed when we see the big picture. So we take it back and we say, what's the 5% version? Okay, so if my big time vision is dancing every week, okay, can we put on a song and dance in the kitchen for 5 minutes this week? Right? That's the 5% version. And then once we've started that tiny step, so much easier to ask for, okay, if I put on one song, will you dance with me? That's an easier ask than I want every single Friday for us to get dressed up and to go dancing. Right? Yeah. But then if you've asked for that one dance in the kitchen, then it's easier to ask, okay, can we do 2 dances in the kitchen? Okay, can we go out dancing once a month? Okay, can we go out dancing twice a month, right? So you kind of stack and build your confidence, and also you practiced asking and you find out, oh, nothing bad happened, right?
Yeah, I didn't die. Right? sometimes that's what it feels like. You have to ask somebody something, you feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm terrified. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know how it's going to go right. I feel awkward,
Yeah.
and then you're like, whatever. You just feel like my whole physical body and head is going to explode if I have to ask this question. And then you do, and then it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're actually pleasantly surprised by what they say.
100%. And we're constantly expanding our comfort zone, our zone of just safety within our own nervous system. And so every time we do have that experience where we're like, oh, I'm, like, I don't want to swear, but like, oh my gosh, I feel so flooded right now with emotions. That's like coming up against our nervous system kind of like bubble. And then once we do it and it goes well and we didn't die and nothing bad happened, our nervous system bubble of safety kind of expands 5%. And then we're just continuing to grow and prove to ourselves that more and more and more is safe.
Yeah, Rose, I wonder, could you suggest, like, what would you say to a client if they are, let's say their partner saying to them, they're not being intimate enough, right? They desire to have sex more frequently. It's not happening, is the frequency. And her response is like, well, hey, I'm running this business. She's probably not going to say it, but she's thinking, I'm the breadwinner here.
Yeah.
And like, I got these things to do to make sure that I can make sure our family's taken care of. How do you have that kind of conversation when the breadwinner is feeling like, I need you to take on more responsibility, right, around the house so that we can, or like, how do you say that in a way that's like, because I can imagine that this has come up for a lot of my clients, right? And I can imagine that saying that to a partner almost feels like you weren't, like, I'm talking about sex and you talk about doing the dishes. Like, are we having the same like, are we having the same conversation right now?
Yeah.
Or like, so like, how would you recommend someone to say that, right, to their partner, asking for what they need, right, so that they can fulfill both of their desires?
Right. Such a good question, Jamila. I'm so happy that you asked it. And this is actually like the majority of my clients, right, are high achieving women and queer folks who feel like they are kicking ass in their day to day and sometimes need a little bit of extra support in the home, sometimes feel like there's not enough time and energy at the end of the day once they're done doing all of the work things, all of the home things, to be physically intimate with their partner. And so I want to name, you're not the only one if you're listening to this and you're feeling that way. And I also want to let you know that a lot of the time it can be easy when we have a libido difference to feel like you are the one who has the problem if you have a lower sex drive, or you are wanting less frequent physical intimacy, or you have less capacity for physical intimacy, we'll say, right? Because it might not be an issue of wanting, it might be truly like a time and energy thing. And I think that it's so easy to take that on and feel like there's something wrong with me. And I want you to just know that there's nothing wrong with you. Libido differences are super common. Doesn't mean we have to stay here. So couple things here. One is really looking at time and energy, kind of like a bank. So we only have, we have a certain amount of time, we have a certain amount of energy. I think that certain activities can give us energy and drain us more quickly, right? Just like certain activities we can do in like 2 seconds, and certain activities, like if I try to do my own taxes, it's going to take me so much longer than if somebody who's an actual expert genius in taxes, right? So you can kind of like create and get rid of energy. But I think talking about this with your partner and saying, yeah, this is a shared difference that we have, and we're problem solving this together. In an ideal world, we both want the same thing. We both want to be connecting more deeply, more frequently, physically and otherwise. And here are my barriers to that. Here's what's getting in the way for me. And so just naming what's going on for you, right? The things that keep me from doing that are work, dishes, laundry, this, that, the other thing, right? These are the things that kind of act like sneaky emergency brakes in my mind.
Yeah.
Right. And then name, these are the things that really help me pump the gas. When I see you around the house doing things, that just makes me feel so loved and taken care of. And it makes me feel so relaxed because I just don't have anything else on my plate. It's just done. That helps me so much. I'm just able to chill, right? Like another thing that makes me feel connected to you is dancing in the kitchen, right? Whatever thing makes you feel good.
Yeah.
So you just kind of name together, these are the things that make it difficult. These are the things that make it easy. And so instead of turning around and saying, well, you need to take this off my plate,
Yeah.
which is so easy to do,
Yeah.
right? Because we're like, you want this from me? Well, I want this from you. You better give it to me first. We're just kind of naming. We're putting all the cards on the table. We're saying we both want the same thing. Here are the things that are at play. Here are the external factors.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that just creates a much more collaborative environment. And so it's still kind of an ask. It is still vulnerable, but it's more of like, what could be done to help us decrease some of these barriers and increase some of the things that make us feel connected? Like, what's possible? And maybe it's not even your partner doing the dishes. Maybe it's hiring someone. Maybe, there are many, many solutions. And I think when you come with an open mind and curiosity with all the cards out on the table, you're able to problem solve together like a team instead of you versus me. You want sex and I want you to do the dishes, right?
Yeah, I love that, Rose. And I think if it's phrased that way, I mean, there'll be household chores getting done like across America,
Yeah.
right? So I love that. Just really kind of presenting like, here's what's holding me back. Here's what the opportunity is. I want to have this intimacy with you, but these are the things that are preventing me from showing up in the way that I really want to show up. I think it's a great way to ask for your desires. I want to just also address the sexual energy and being able to, as high achieving women, how do we tap into that sexual energy more? Because I feel like, you could be in, get shit done mode, and then you're trying to like, how do you turn that off? Right. So that you can actually kind of come down and be there with your partner and not be in that same energy. I know myself, when I'm in that, I'm negotiating, I'm having calls, I gotta be aggressive and make things happen. But, that's not necessarily the energy we want to show up with in our romantic relationship. So
right.
Can you speak to that a bit, Rose?
Absolutely. And this is so common. I hear this all the time, right? I'm checking off my to-do list. I'm wrangling kids. I'm getting shit done in my business. And at the end of the day, my mind is still going, trying to solve problems, trying to critically think, putting together the pieces, picking up what got lost during the day. And so I think about like shifting your nervous system to a space where you're ready for intimacy, almost like shifting your nervous system to a space where you're ready to sleep, right? So different people have different abilities to sleep, right? My partner hits the pillow, immediately is asleep, right?
Mine too.
You lucky son of a,
Like,
no.
Yeah.
But same with sex, right? Some people are like immediately, like you look at them, they're like ready to go, right? Some people, for sleep, I need to shower. I need to be like listening to relaxing music. I need to put my phone on do not disturb. I need to read for like almost an hour sometimes.
Wow.
Like I like really, my nervous system needs a lot to wind down. And so there's no right way to be, right? Head hit the pillow or, hour-long bedtime routine. There's no right way to be, but it's really, really key to understand if you're noticing in your body, hey, at the end of my workday, I'm having a really hard time shifting. That would be a great opportunity to come up with some sort of routine or ritual, just like you have a bedtime routine or ritual. So I've had clients do really well with showering like right after work to kind of like wash the day away. I've had clients who will set do not disturb or focus on their phone or put their phone in the other room when their work hours are done. The client, lock her computer in the other room. I've had clients, do a dance party when work is done. I've had clients do walking, exercising, right? No one size fits all, but I want you to think about there's a transition time. I think that we don't name that often, where we just kind of assume that our nervous system will immediately go from get shit done to feminine, juicy, ready for intimacy, deeply connected, eye gazing with our partner. And our mind is like, no, we are not ready for that. So acknowledging, just like maybe you wouldn't hit the pillow and fall immediately to sleep, it's okay if you need a wind down time, but we have to be intentional about what we are doing to wind down and shift to tell our body work is over. We're in relaxation time.
Yeah, that's really great, Rose. It made me think about a client of mine that I worked with who she had developed a practice. Her thing was more around, it was also around shifting this energy, but we were talking about it more from a productivity perspective. And so she was saying that what she started doing as a practice to make that transition is when she got home from work, she would not even really talk to anybody. Like she'd run upstairs and put on her jeans, right? Like she was, in whatever work attire all day. She'd run upstairs, put on her jeans, and then kind of come down and greet the family. And for her, it was like an actual mental shift that really helped her to get out of work mode, into, wifey mode or mom mode or whatever. And another thing that another client talked about doing was having Alexa set to a certain time. And this, you could do this even if you're working in a home office where, your Alexa or Siri or whoever, right? It goes off and starts playing music. So she had it so that there was a certain playlist, right, that came on at 3 or 4 o'clock, which went for about an hour, right, that last hour of work. And so it's literally like a mnemonic device, is an actual signal of okay, it's time to make that transition from work time into playtime or after work or however you're using evenings.
I love that. And music is so powerful. I think that I'm such a podcast person. You probably are too, because you have a podcast, but it's so easy for me to just consume podcasts. And I have to be very, very intentional at certain times of my day when I'm saying, all right, it's got to be music because that's what my nervous system needs right now. And it makes such a huge difference. And I love that she just set that up saying, okay, when my nervous system, it's like a Pavlovian response almost, right? My nervous system hears the music, time to come down.
Yes. So basically you can figure out something, right? So whatever it is, it's going to work for you, whether it is like the Siri or Alexa or all of the things you mentioned, Rose. You want to think about what I'm hearing you say, right? Is we need a transition, like something that snaps us out of, that work energy, get things done energy, into a more, I'm at home now, but then it can take us a step further. So once we do that reset, right? Let's say from home to work, being home is fine. Tapping into that sexual energy is probably another level deeper. So so once we've done that initial work of being out of work mode, then how do we get more in touch with our feminine side? How do we, I feel like there's some, I don't think that I'm one of them, but I feel like there's some women that just ooze sex, they ooze sexiness or sexual energy, just their way of showing up, right? is that way. So I believe everyone possesses this, right? But some of them aren't just walking around in that energy all day, every day. So how do we get there when we want to get there?
Yeah. And this is, something that I work with my clients all the time on. So if you're feeling this way, how do we get there? How do we flip this light switch? it is, you're not the only one. So I think that a lot of the time we think of intimate or like being ready for intimacy, like sex drive, like a light switch, like it's either on or off. But what I like to describe it as, it's especially for people who are women or have vulvas, most of the time, the way that we experience desire is through something called responsive desire, which I'll talk about. But basically, light switch, like boop, I'm ready, boop, I'm not ready. That's spontaneous desire. That's what we see a lot of the time in TV, media, movies. And responsive desire is a lot more like starting a car, right? So we talked earlier about like taking the emergency brake off, meaning like, okay, the dishes aren't done, the laundry's not done. Like this stuff, like it's a no-go if this is on the plate, right? So we take the emergency brake off. We're like, okay, work is done. We've transitioned. Then you start the car. Then you got to assess the situation. Maybe you put it in reverse. Maybe you put it in drive. So there's a lot of different steps that have to happen. I think that desire is the same way. So the first step physiologically is we have to be in a relaxed state, and a state that's not like our get shit done mode. This is what we talked about with the ritual, and taking some of the things off of our plate. The next piece of it is we have to make sure that we're not feeling pressured or stressed about sex. And then the last piece of it is really like showing ourselves, exposing ourselves to something that is actually like a little bit sexy. So I think about this, if you've ever like been at a friend's house and they've offered you a cookie and you're like, no, I don't want a cookie. And then you smell the cookies baking, you're like, well, fuck, I need a cookie, right?
Right. I didn't think I wanted a cookie till I smelled it, right?
Right. And it's like, you may not ooze cookie energy, you're like, be a cookie person, right? But like, as soon as you smell that cookie, you're like, I'm ready for that. So sex and desire can work very similarly. And there's different ways that we can kind of like expose ourselves to like sexy type of stimuli. But just knowing that, hey, most of the time, people who are identify as women and people who have vulvas actually like need to sort of be exposed to something sexy to get into it is such a key piece of information, because then you know, all right, if I know that I will enjoy this when we do it, if I know that I will feel more connected to my partner, if I know cognitively that I want to, even if I'm not like 100% in the mood, if I'm like open to this, might be worth it to try kissing or hugging or, you know, dancing together and just seeing what happens. And the key here is we have to remember we can't feel pressured. And so when I am talking to my clients about this, I really encourage like time for connection and time for exploration without pressure on the outcome. I think so frequently our society says like, all right, you have to have, you know, P&V penetration, and, you know, it needs to end in an orgasm for both people. And that's when it's successful, right? And it's like physical intimacy has so many more facets than that. And it's really important to say, all right, can we just create a space? Like, can we take an hour right now where we're just kind of like exploring each other, seeing what happens? And like, hey, if my responsive desire doesn't kick in, if my body isn't on board, I can say, you know, I'm done at any time without anyone getting upset. Like that is so key. So I think that really knowing I have to expose myself to something sexy, whether that's like starting sexual activity with my partner or watching Sex Life or listening to sexy audio stories or reading erotica. Like sometimes I literally just need to smell the cookies.
Okay. I love it. That's a good way to put it. So really just taking that time. I like what you said, without pressure to explore. Can you give us just like one example? Like what could we do in that exploration to kind of tap into that sexiness without the pressure?
Yes, absolutely. So I've had clients do like make out Monday that they've really liked, where they're literally just like, we're going to make out and see what happens. I've had clients who we'll cuddle and see what happens. There's a protocol called Sensate Focus that takes you through like, it's just shifting, one person is kind of like giving touch, the other one is receiving touch. And it takes you through different levels where one, you're fully clothed, there's only touch above the belt, next, maybe your shirt's off, but there's like touch everywhere. So it kind of goes down the line. Next is touch around your body, but not your genitals. And then the next level is you can include the genitals. So you can kind of explore that way, building on it and seeing like, okay, do we even want to get to the last level? Like, does one of us want to be at the last level and the other one's like, good. So that's a way to have guidance. You can just Google Sensate Focus and find that protocol. Another option.
Can you just repeat that? You said, is it Sensei Focus?
Sensate. So SENSATE Focus.
Okay. Okay, great. I'll link that in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah. There's another incredible game called the 3-minute game. I'll also send you a link to that. But it's basically just like, all right, we're going to set a 3-minute timer and I'm going to tell you exactly how I would like you to touch me. And maybe it's like, I want you to stroke my hair or rub my shoulders or rub my hand. It doesn't have to be explicitly sexual, but like, how frequently are we actually giving each other attention and loving touch? And again, talking about practicing asking for what you want, like having 3 minutes where you say to your partner, this is the touch that I'm really craving right now. Such a powerful activity, such a powerful way to practice. And, sometimes that'll go somewhere and sometimes it won't, but just really redefining what successful sex or successful intimacy looks like in your relationship is key. It's really, really important.
So one question I have, Rose, is I hear this a lot with women saying that their guy is, or their partner is always like ready to go, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's ready to go and I gotta like get ready to go. So I guess I assume that's natural, right? For women to need more of a ramp up. I don't know. What should we know about women around that? You know what I mean? Like, let's say that we do desire to, to kind of get ready when our partner is ready.
Yeah.
But how do we do that in a way that honors our desires? Because I really, based on what I'm hearing you say, like this, it doesn't work, right? When you're trying to when you're feeling the pressure. Yeah. There's a pressure around, it's not going to happen. So how do you get yourself ready? And then even taking it a step further, how does doing that support a woman in getting to her orgasm, or support a partner, right? And being able to climax. So what does that look like in terms of the get ready part?
Yeah.
Without pressure.
All I want to say is you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. No, I'm just kidding. But
oh, there you go. Uh-oh. Drop it, Rose. Tell us all the things. Spill the tea.
No, but I think in our society, it's so common to just push our sexuality like totally to the back burner of our brain. And what I've seen, like, yes, this is so common. And yes, there's nothing wrong with you if this is how you're experiencing desire. However, if you want it to shift and you want to be more ready and you want to have less of a ramp up, what I have seen in my clients is when you are putting intentional energy into connecting with your body and your sexuality on a regular basis, it gets so much easier. Your runway is smaller. You have less work to do to get over that kind of like initial resistance hump. It's kind of like, no pun intended with hump, but basically it's like when you're in a good routine at the gym. It's like, you love working out, your body feels great. There's no resistance anymore. You're just like, yeah, every day at 9 a.m. I go to the gym and I feel great and I'm happy to do it. But if you've gone a month, 2 months without going to the gym, like how much resistance is going to be there? How little are you thinking about the gym? Whereas I think that sometimes we think of cravings like hunger, right? Like, oh, if I'm not craving sex, then I don't really need it or want it. And it just works in a different way than hunger. We have to practice it to crave it. And so I think that using these strategies and creating more pressure-free points of connection and touch, and actually spending time with your sexual self and creating opportunities to be sensual and sexual, even if you're not having sex, even if you're just giving each other shoulder massages, even if you're just dancing, like more practice creates a shorter runway, in my experience, what I have seen with my clients.
Okay. So I'm hearing things like more physical touch, massages. So just that kind of like intimacy in that way. Shoulder massage was a great example. What are a couple, maybe give us two or three other things that we could do to kind of be in that sexual energy on a regular basis? I love what you said. Like, if you're ready, you don't have to get ready, right? Like, so what are the things that we can be doing, right, as high achievers to really kind of embody that energy more? I really love that idea, because I actually said this to myself recently, that I want to embody that energy more. And not just from a relationship perspective, but I really think that it's effective in business as well.
It is.
And so, I mean, tell us, Rose, how do we just walk around like, feeling sexy and all the things all the time? Like, how do we get into that? So so in terms of our partners, absolutely, maybe a few things there, and then on our own, like kind of being in that energy too.
Yeah. So let me just say, like, our sacral chakra is all about sensuality, sexuality, and creativity. So the more you're dipping into your sexual energy, the more time you're investing in your sensuality, sexuality expression, the more you're unlocking your creativity. So it does have a direct impact on your business. It does have a direct impact on the rest of your life and how effective you are. Because when we have creative problem solving, we're able to do things faster with less energy and have more fun. Creativity is life force, right? And same with sexual energy. And so I think we have a good understanding of what we can do with a partner, but let's just talk about like how much media we are consuming on a daily basis, like scrolling social media, listening to podcasts, listening to all of this. Like, even if we took 10, 15 minutes to read an erotic novel, to listen, there's an app called Dipsea, which I'll send you for the show notes too, Dipsea, that is short, sexy audio stories. So it's like, just think about if you took a walk after your workday and you popped in a sexy audio story on your walk, like how different would your energy be when you came home? Like, you probably wouldn't care about the dishes quite so much. Right? You're like, okay, that's awesome. Like, don't care about that. Let's go here. And so the key is really finding the things. Like, I have a playlist of my own that is just like, these are the songs that make me feel so sexy. And I put it on and I just feel myself. Right. And like, and so again, many, many different things. No one size fits all, but I've had clients who every time they wash their hands, they actually will give themselves like a sensual hand massage and actually take like 30 extra seconds to be like, wow, this really feels good. Like, I'm actually asking myself, what would feel good on my hand right now, and meeting that need for myself. Or in the shower, when I'm using my soap, I'm actually like using my soap and giving myself like an actual like breast massage, right? Like, how frequently are you just like boop, 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 like, like as fast as possible. And it's just like all these little moments are just have the opportunity to turn towards that side of yourself. And I really think like once you start making intentional effort, it's easy to find those moments.
Oh, I love that. That is really good. Okay. So just being like taking those extra time, being more, one with ourselves, providing our own desire, right? In the moment, how do we want to be touched? Like, you can do that yourself, not just kind of waiting around for your partner. So I think there's a challenge, Rose, about being able to, I don't know how to say it, but it's like almost like being an expectation around what you desire, like having a level of like, of course, I should have what I really crave or want, right? Like if that is to be, dancing in the kitchen with your partner, if that is to be kissed intimately, and how on those like romantic movies the person's always like dipped back, if that's what you want, right? Like, if it is that you want a certain type of sexual pleasure or a certain way that you want to be pleasured, how do we have that, right? Because it's so funny. I know my clients, and I know my, successful friends, Rose, and like in our community too, like it's one thing to ask for what you want in a business setting, a whole nother thing in a relationship setting. So how can we just shift our minds to this idea? Because I wonder if this happened for you. Growing up, for me, I heard a lot of women casually talking, whether it be in a TV show or I'm out somewhere, a part of a women's group or some kind of group, and I would hear them talking about their sexual lives.
Yeah.
Like in a way that wasn't desirable,
Yeah.
He wants to have sex again. Oh, it's my partner's birthday, like, or women talking about not having an orgasm.
Yes.
And that's just not going on in their relationship. And there's like an expectation around that, like that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so can you speak to that, Rose? Like, how can we, number one, like shift our mind to having an expectation around what we want? And then kind of claiming it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a couple things that we talked about can help with this for sure, right? The vision meditation, certain things will pop up that you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that I wanted to be dipped and kissed in a ocean at sunset, but I guess I do. And now I know that I want that. Right? So things will become illuminated. Same with, reading erotica or listening to sexy audio stories, right? You'll hear something, you're like, wow, I didn't even know that I wanted that. And now I definitely want it. And so these things that are expanders, also talking with other people in a safe community about this is what's working for me, this is what's not. That's another great expander of like shifting your own expectation for desire. So the first step is shifting your expectation of what is okay, what you want, and what you need, right? And I think we've been passed down from generations of women that we are just there to, serve our partners or to, give pleasure, not receive pleasure. And I think that we are changing that narrative with each generation, and there's still work to be done. We're still inheriting some of these beliefs, some of these stories. And so it's can be difficult to untangle those narratives. But the more we continue to talk about it, the more we continue to step into what's possible, the easier it is to release that. So first is shifting your own beliefs. And then just like setting boundaries in any other part of your relationship, we have to set boundaries around sex, right? Like if there's a part of sex that you are doing obligatory or, if it feels like a should, or it feels like, you're really not into it. So I think it's important when we're talking about responsive desire, when I say, like, if you're open to it, go for it, and your responsive desire will build. That's very different than if you're really not in the mood and you're afraid your partner will get mad at you if you do it, then do it. That's not what I'm saying. right? Like we are always checking in with you and your intention. And I think that anytime we have intimacy, it has to be motivated by our own desire, either for connection, closeness, physical touch, right? Like um, building this part of us, building connection to our sexuality. All of those are really beautiful desires. But if the only desire is not to upset your partner, that's where I want you to really focus in and start to perhaps set some boundaries, right? Sometimes when people come to me, they're at the point where sex doesn't sound fun to them. It only feels like an obligation. It only feels like something on their to-do list. It only feels like something they're doing to avoid fighting. And I oftentimes will have people take sex completely off the table for 30 days so that they can clear some of that noise of what's expected of them and begin to reestablish like a new way of being, like what is possible for desires. So I think one, getting clear with yourself. Two, setting boundaries with your partner as needed, right? If you're never having an orgasm during intimacy and you want to have one, let's figure that out. Let's stop standing for that. Let's say, like, let's try a toy in the bedroom. Let's try a different position. Let's see if you can, have an orgasm solo and bring that into partnered work. And so the first step is saying, this is working for me, this is not, and here's what we're going to do about it. And then I also think just naming that, like, there's nothing off bounds. There's nothing, you can't go wrong. It's all about just like acknowledging and communicating with your partner what you've discovered within yourself.
All right. I love it, Rose. And that was amazing. So I'm curious, anything else you want to add in terms of really helping women to, tap into their sexual desires and really being able to leverage that energy, being in that space to help them impact their breadwinning businesses?
Yeah. I think that when you are connected to your sensuality and sexuality, it is such a magnetic energy. People are so drawn to you. And I think that a huge part of that is being attuned to yourself and being attuned to what you need and what you want and practicing vocalizing it and using your voice. And those are skills that directly impact your business. Right. And the more, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, like being around a service provider or an entrepreneur or business owner that is just so grounded in their own beliefs and their own desires and able to vocalize it clearly. You're like, I want to be near you.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah. It's a
I
vibe.
want some of what she's having. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do think it tremendously impacts your breadwinning business for sure. And I think that I want everyone to know, even though these things are common, it definitely does not have to be the case, right? We don't have to accept, all right, like, I don't really enjoy sex as much as my partner does, and this is just what it is, right? There's so much room to expand pleasure in intimacy, or, we've been together 5, 10, 15, 30 years, like, we're just not sexual anymore. You don't have to accept that. I have seen people shift all along spectrums of their relationship. And I hear a lot of people who say, hey, I'm a business owner, I'm a mom now, I'm a wife, like sex was for my 20s, like I'm just not sexy like I was in my 20s, I'm not a sexual person anymore. You don't have to accept that, right? Like if you're happy with that and your partner's happy with that, there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely. Like to each their own. But if you're unhappy with it and you just feel like there's no other way, I want you to know that it is so possible to shift. And there's so many beautiful nuggets, even in this podcast episode, that can get you started.
Love it. Thank you so much, Rose. Let's let everyone know how they can connect with you online, learn more about the work that you're doing. We didn't even get to talk about the pelvic floor, which I think is another important piece. So I want to make sure that people can definitely check you out and, do this work and be able to, tap into their energy. So where should people go to find out more?
Absolutely. So I absolutely love working with women and queer folks who are high achievers, who are feeling like they really love their partner. They want more physical intimacy. They want more physical intimacy, but it feels like there's just not enough time and energy in the day. And I really believe that this can be built, this can be practiced, this can be expanded. And my goal is for all women and queer folks to feel connected to their sensuality, to really feel like there is a spark in their relationship, and to feel like they're confident and carefree around sex and actually energized by it instead of drained by the thought of it or feeling like it's an obligation. So the way that I work with people is one-on-one and through groups. And so I have another group starting on February 24th called Reclaim the Flame, which would be a great place to hang out with me if any of this resonated with you. I think the magic of a group, especially when it comes to sex and intimacy, is it's such a secret topic. We're so in our heads about, what's going on in our own sex life, and to just be in a room and see other people and know what's possible, and also know I'm not the only one feeling this way. Everybody else is struggling with this too. And also, this is helping them. It's so transformative. And I see that people get results much faster. So, yeah. And just generally, I'm on Instagram at Be Well with Rose. If you want to check me out there, send me a DM. And I would love to hear if you listened to this and it impacted you. Please let me know. Or if you have any other questions, please let me know. I think it's so important to talk about sex, and I don't think we talk about it as a society enough.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We don't talk about it as a society enough. So I'm excited that you could be here with me, Dr. Rose, to really drop those gems so that breadwinning women can really be able to show up fully as themselves, right? Not just as powerful businesswomen, but fully in their sexuality, fully claiming their desires and going after what they want. So thanks, Rose, for being here today. It's been amazing to chat with you.
Yes, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see you in person soon.
Yes, exactly. We're going to be fulfilling our desires in a nice warm destination.